the athlete will post on their Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and that will hopefully drive traffic. You should be putting them on the homepage of your website, their testimonial on your Amazon page, sending out a press release, even if it's just a one-time deal.
Welcome to the Mastering E-commerce Marketing Podcast. I'm your host, Eitan Kotter, co-CEO of Vimy. In an era of rising acquisition costs and increased competition, this podcast is dedicated to helping you drive sales, engage customers, and build meaningful communities so you can turn passive visitors into active buyers. Now let's get started with the episode. Hello e-commerce fans, and welcome to another episode of Mastering E-commerce Marketing. In today's episode, we're exploring the world of sports sponsorships, data-driven marketing, and the game-changing role of technology in connecting brands with athletes. And who better to guide us through this journey than Ishveen Jolly, a trailblazing entrepreneur, Forbes 30 Under 30 honoree, and the founder and CEO of Open Sponsorship, the world's largest marketplace connecting brands with over 12,000 professional athletes. From captaining her college sports teams at Oxford University to becoming a sports agent in India, Ishveen saw firsthand the inefficiencies in sponsorship deals. That's when she set out to disrupt a $60 billion industry, making sponsorship more accessible, transparent, and data-driven. Today, Open Sponsorships has facilitated over 10,000 deals across 160 sports in 120 countries, and it's only getting smarter. Ishveen, wow, welcome. How are you?
Thanks for having me.
Ishveen, what was the aha moment that led you to create Open Sponsorship?
Yeah, I actually moved to New York for personal reasons. And in my personal life, I was using Uber had just come out, and there was a platform called ZocDoc that was like to book doctor's appointments, Airbnb to stay in. And yet when I thought about my own day job, it was super manual, all about kind of who do you know? And I just thought there must be a smarter way to do our industry like these others.
What was the day job back then?
I was working more so on the sports sponsorship, and actually my passion point had been like cross-border. So helping brands in India, as you mentioned, I'd worked there to potentially like sponsor teams in South America or do international deals. So as you can imagine, I was doing a lot of flying all over the place, a lot of meetings in person. And I thought, wait, why is there not like an Airbnb type platform for our industry?
Interesting. What inspired you to spend time in this industry and try to innovate, and why you're so passionate about it?
Yeah, I kind of fell into sponsorship by mistake, to be honest. So as you mentioned, I had grown up playing a lot of sports. I've got this. I heard this phrase once. It wasn't mine, but I'm borrowing it. Where this woman had said that sport was her third parent. And I would definitely agree with that. And so like sports was a massive part of my life. And after university, I graduated, I became a management consultant, and I realized like my heartstrings were not that satisfied. And so I kind of just was like, I want to work in the sports industry. I didn't really know what I wanted to do. So kind of fell into this role and actually loved sponsorship. I love it as a form of marketing. I love it for almost like the money can't buy, but money can buy experiences.
Mm-hmm.
And also the fact that, you're kind of putting two people together, which is like the matchmaking aspect of it is really fun.
Wow, interesting. And so what's the biggest misconceptions brands have about athletes sponsorships?
One, I think people think it's too expensive. So I think a big thing that we do is to do deals for the non-top 5%, and they're very, very, very reasonable.
Mm-hmm.
And two, I'd say a lot of people kind of think, well, they're an athlete, they like make loads of money. If they're doing this, they're kind of being forced to do this. And actually that's just not the case. Athletes, it's very different reasons. So it could be because they genuinely love the brand and the industry. It could be for the money, but it could also be because, athletes retire much earlier than you and I do.
Mm-hmm.
And so when they're playing, they want to naturally be doing other things to kind of learn. And sponsorship is one of those kind of interesting elements that they get to do.
Interesting. So tell us how it started.
in terms of.
The marketplace, the open sponsorship. I mean, what were the initial challenges? How do you overcome them?
Yeah. So, firstly, it was just an idea, and I thought, am I really going to do this? Like, I've never built tech before. And, people often say, like, I've got an idea. When do you know? I say that, like, when you start waking up in the morning stressed that someone else is going to, there's going to be an article that someone's doing this idea that you have, that's the time to move. So at first it was like, we had this website, and I mean, we just celebrated our 10-year anniversary. So definitely lots of iterations, but the main thing that we did was really focus on the brand side. But first we focused on the athlete side, but we made that for free. And we basically went to the market, and we didn't start off with just athletes. We had teams, events, leagues, and we basically said, look, will you sign up? And obviously everyone said, this is not going to work, but we said, it's free. It takes 5 minutes to sign up, and you only have upside. If we do a deal, you get paid. If we don't, you literally have to spend no money. So once we got to like 1,000 properties, then we flipped to the brand side, and that's the side we were charging. So obviously that was way more complicated. But yeah, I mean, athlete first and then over to the other side. And it's been kind of going lots of different learnings, but going from there since then.
No, it's really interesting. It's one of the hardest things to do, right? It's so hard to launch just a tech company, a startup serving one customer. This is a two-side marketplace. And if you always try to figure out where you start. So you said you start with the athletes, just telling them, hey, it's free. I'm working very hard to get your sponsorships deal. Please join me, right? That was the message, and it worked very well. So you figured, I mean, you ramped it up to around 1,000, as you said, and then you approach the brand side. So what happened there? What were the major objections and maybe opportunities that you've discussed with them?
Yeah, I think so. Obviously, it was like very different things. The biggest challenges we had were that the people with budgets, even though tech is a better way to do things, whether it's more efficient, better value, quicker, all of that, more transparent. In marketing, as I'm sure you know, the agency world is quite entrenched and relationships are quite entrenched. And so I didn't really, all those examples I told you, Uber, Airbnb, they are consumer facing. And as a consumer, you go with whichever's cheapest or more convenient. It's not, you're not like friends with the founder. That's why you use it. In B2B, relationships matter. Which is kind of obvious, but I hadn't really thought about it. And so what initially happened was a lot of the people we approached, they were like, well, what, our agency does this. And we'd say, well, this is a better way to do it. And they're like, yeah, I mean, you might save me $20,000, but nah, okay. And
it's
I think
nice,
now is
but
a
it's not a
different
must,
time.
right? Yeah.
Huh?
It's nice to have. It's not a must to have.
Exactly. Right? Especially when their budgets are so big.
Yeah.
And so what initially happened is we ended up working with lots of very, very, very small companies.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not a bad thing, right? Because if they're paying you less, then they're less mad if things break and whatever else. So we learned with the small, and it took us a long time to work our way up to like bigger companies. I remember we signed Walmart during COVID, and that was obviously amazing, Fortune 1. But that, we'd been going 6 years by that point. And so it took the small companies helped us grow, and then we kept, but obviously that's quite unsustainable, right? Because if they're paying you $200 a month, it's quite hard to cover an engineering salary in New York on that. So
mm-hmm. Yeah, sure. What about the finance side of things in terms of investments or bootstrapping? What was your journey?
Yeah, so we went through 500 startups, the accelerator in San Francisco in 2016. And that was really good. I think it made me realize that running a startup it's partly art, but there's also a science. There's a process behind the madness kind of thing. And so that was really helpful for that. We raised about 1.1 million in 2016. And then we raised again in 2021, at the end of 2021. Really fortunate. It was like a dream come true. We had Serena Williams come in as our lead investor alongside David Blitzer. So those were our two kind of raises. And I'd say the big thing that happened in the last year, as I'm sure you know, is there was a move to companies should be profitable. strong unit economics, profitability, no more of this like raise and just spend and grow. And so that has been really interesting. And in fact, our marketplace, what it originated as is like the Airbnb self-serve model, has definitely morphed to be more of a like a tech-enabled agency, or you could say a marketplace with services where we're very hands-on with our clients. We really support with strategy. And that's in the move to get to profitability. We were like, where is the added value? And I think it's through people, not just through tech.
Yes, I totally agree. This is what I see also for Vimeo, our company, and also for other colleagues and friends and a lot of researchers in the industry is that self-service is not enough, right, to sustain, because companies are spending so much money today just to get rid of SaaS platforms, right, because there are too much of them. But also the rise of fractional CXO, like fractional everything, right? And so there is definitely a need for hand-holding, for more of a managed services type of approach, white glove. That also improves profitability for the tech company, is also the stickiness, right, with while working with brands. So I totally agree with this approach, and I'm excited to hear it. You're also in this process. So what's the challenges that you are facing today? I mean, what's your target? What's your plans for 2025?
Yeah, I'd say for us, it's all about growth. I think we've done a really good job of like our P&L in 2024 improved 90% over 2023.
Wow.
So I think we did really good at like recalibrating what we needed, resources, our strategy. And so now it's just kind of growing, and it's two aspects. So one is new client growth, of course. I'm sure you're seeing this, but like, the old ways of getting clients, email, dead, right? Because people get too many emails. Even like anything, when there's too much of it, it becomes a bit saturated. Like Facebook ads used to work very well for us. Like now, like no one's clicking on ads anymore for B2B, especially because, as you said, they don't need more tools. So it's very much like word of mouth, but at the same time, like you want to be sensitive to the work you're doing for your clients and not oversharing. So I'd say like new client growth and where to spend our marketing efforts and dollars is definitely a challenge. And then we still we have Callaway Golf as a client, but we work with a small team, and there's a brand team who works in a different way. And so it's about how do we almost like penetrate within a company to like grow the account, but also being mindful of your existing relationship and not saying this isn't enough, because it is. But of course, we'd love to be doing way more with each of our companies, our brands.
Yeah, so that's the land and expand type of approach, but it's also very dangerous thing to do, because it's like defocusing the entire company for maybe becoming more project oriented, or something which is customization services, or something which is very specific to specific customers. So I think it's a great opportunity, definitely a valid target, a valid approach, but needs to be handled with care, right? And obviously for companies like yourself, you aggregate huge amount of data. So what is the role of data, in this type of platforms, and how do you see, AI shaping this industry?
Great question, and very timely. We recently did a analysis of like our software spend, and we realized that one, we spend a lot of money on different services, and I don't think we fully leverage them all. And so like by that even, we may have signed up to a service 3 years ago and we pull like 10 data points from that API. Now they might have 300 available. Okay, so great. So now we're like, great, we can get more value from this. Let's save 300. But then it's like, well, how am I using these 300? What am I doing with this? Like, how do I not just make sure that it sits in my database to say, hey, look, we have all this data. So we are currently relooking at our like whole data strategy. And obviously being a marketplace, the dream for us is, even though I've said like move away from self-service and to the managed, but the dream would be that I could like send, you guys at Vimeo an email and be like, this is the perfect athlete for you to partner with. Here's the reasons, they talk about data, or, they come and visit Israel, whatever the reasons may be. And so that's kind of like, can we move to that? But is the market ready for it? And like, how many other things need to happen for that to turn into revenue? And so I think that's the thing, which is like, you can get data for acquisition. Hey, look, we're a valuable company. Look at all this data we have. or you can use it for revenue, obviously, ideally both. But that connect of data to revenue is it's quite hard.
Yeah, yeah. Interesting. Obviously, personalization is a big thing, right? That's still, I guess, under experimentation mode, right, in the industry, and definitely for marketing and personalizing athletes and maybe merchandising of things. And so you started in the smaller side of the customer sizes, and obviously working with Fortune 1, as you said. What are some of the things that smaller brands or mid-sized brands can do to compete with the larger ones?
Well, I think we've seen it a lot in the D2C space, right? With like these D2C companies growing and then getting bought by a Unilever or P&G. I think the main thing that I see is efficient decision making. Two is, for example, with us. So if you do a deal with an athlete or an influencer through us, yes, the athlete will post on their Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and that will hopefully drive traffic. But this is an athlete. Like, you should be putting them on the homepage of your website. You should be putting their testimonial on your Amazon page. You should be sending out a press release, even if it's just a one-time deal. You can put it in your MMS marketing, your email marketing, all of these other applications. And I feel like bigger companies, everything is quite siloed, which makes it quite difficult to get as much ROI out of a deal as if you're working with a smaller company. They are like, yeah, I'll just make that happen. I'll make that happen. And so I think that is really interesting about smaller companies, like the efficiency and the speed at which, and the ability to use every little bit of information across everything.
Yes, that's their opportunity, where being more agile and flexible in your mindset and internal processes just make you be more innovative and move fast, right? Don't be afraid to break things, right?
Yeah.
On the road, right? The platform fits. Are you targeting specific categories in the market?
In terms of the influencers?
I mean, in terms of the brands.
Oh, okay, yeah. Well, actually, they go hand in hand. So we were athletes only for a long time, and then not really any specific targets. Like, we basically say that our like top three were obviously any product that naturally used athletes as its customer. So health and wellness, foods, recovery products, all of that. But number two category, interestingly for us, was anyone focused on the male demographic, because apart from athletes, a lot of influencers skew female. So that would be what two. And number three is in America, obviously, it's such a big country, which is our home base. And it's because it's so big, it's very hard to do local marketing great, which is why Facebook and Google ads and everything else are so effective. Athletes are amazing for local marketing. Because, like this, I kind of have this joke that anyone who's really famous, who's not an athlete, moves to LA or New York. Whereas like if you're an athlete, you live in Chicago or Cleveland or Pittsburgh or wherever else. And so those were kind of our three targets. But as I mentioned to you, we've recently expanded beyond the athletes. And I think that's dictating a whole new set of brands for us. Like we're working with a lot of foodie influencers and like recipe creators, financial influencers, nurses and practitioners. So I think they're adjacent to athletes because, as you can see, there's like a trend of health and wellness. Like we're not going into fashion and beauty, but it does open us up to new categories.
Interesting. And this is one of the ways to just expand the business, just to, you felt it, make it less saturated.
I think that also like what we talked about, the land and expand. So when we spoke to our clients, they were like, look, we love you guys. We want to work with you more. But if you just do athletes, there's only so much of our budget. It's not you, it's just what you're offering. So by being able to say, hey, we can also do these other categories, or we can do podcasts, or we can do other things, it allows us to exactly what you were saying. Like, we've got the relationship. How do we get more work from you?
Got it. And those athletes or the additional, experts that you're onboarding, how the content production works. Some of them are already well known and influencers, and they like to create content. Some of them are not. How this process is going?
Yeah, actually, interestingly, for the non-athletes, it's easier because to be fair, part of the reason they've become influencers is because they're great at content creation and doing it themselves and whatever else. The athletes is the one that we struggle with because, I'm an NBA player, I'm a baseball player. Like, I don't sit at home and shoot videos of myself in high res. And so the athletes can be a struggle, but that's it. Like, you're kind of almost buying that authenticity that they like the product. And but we have definitely struggled with that. I mean, we do everything from writing really good creative briefs to offering to get on the phone and all of that. But ultimately what we do is we say, if you're really interested in good content, here are athletes that do that. But if you're interested in working with someone who's going to be playing in the Super Bowl, the content might not be as good unless we hire a photographer, but that's authentic.
Yes, and this is some of the like the managed service or the white glove service that you provide, right?
Yeah.
Just if someone wants to target a specific athlete which is not creating content, so yeah, there is a way to work around that, right? Ishveen, you work globally. There is any effect here for like different strategies or different processes across different markets?
Yeah, I mean, I love working in the American market. I would say I feel like running a smaller company. I'm not sure we can say we're a startup anymore after 10 years, but you want people who will just like give it a go. And there's not too much back and forth, especially when the test budgets can be quite small. And I feel like America is very much like, okay, let's give it a go. If it works, it's great. England is often a bit more like conservative, risk taking. Europe, same way, which, we see in regulation and we see in everything else.
Yeah.
So I think those are really hard because, we're selling marketing. Like you said, it's a nice to have, not a need to have. And so I like working there. We've recently worked with more Asian countries, brands. What's interesting for us is also Asian or international companies that want to try and break into America, but really don't understand the cultural landscape. So whether it's sports or maybe it's language or timing, because even though because we have a platform, everything's a little bit more tech driven. And it just makes communication easier. Like, for example, in our platform, we have the ability to create a collection of athletes. So we can say, like, here's 20 people who've talked about, I don't know, vegan products in a collection, send it over to the brand. They are sitting in Korea, they can see it in their own time, say who they like. And so there's less like contact needed, which is quite useful for international.
Interesting. So Ishveen, if you would have started open sponsorship today, what would you do differently?
Oh, good question. I mean, I'd probably want the business we have now. It's hard to know how much how much of the build has been wasted and the lessons wasted. But I'd say, one, I wouldn't start with just athletes. I think you need to be broader. I think all influencers. Two, I'd probably want more services right from the beginning, like PR and podcasting, or like I'd speak to the market and be like, where are there other opportunities so that you can like own the client a little bit more. And three, I'd start charging more from the beginning. I mean, every company says this, that you charge too little. I'm sure we still charge too little to our clients for the value we give.
Interesting. Do you see any upcoming trends in the sports sponsorship industry that brands should be aware of?
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's been the rise of female sports. I hope that doesn't go away with the new administration, but we'll see. But yeah, I think like female sports, the athlete as a content creator, kind of what you said. Like, I think athletes who don't produce good content, don't post on social, never make videos, it's just harder to sell them than a slightly lesser quality athlete who does do all of that stuff. So say those are my two trends.
Yes. So a lot of your new opportunities are coming from this word of mouth, from this network effect, or you're still spending, on advertising, influencer marketing? I mean, as part of your marketing budget.
Yeah, I'd say Predominantly word of mouth. I mean, we still do a lot of email and use our CRM. I just think the nature of it has changed a bit more, where it's like a lot of re-engaging people who were in our contact base versus like new people, where you blast out 10,000 emails and you get
Right.
whatever response rates.
Mhm.
So, but we've also moved away. Like we sign less clients, and we're very much more focused on retention and expansion. So I think that has also helped to like reduce the pressure on like having to bring in a lot of new people.
Yes. And what are your thoughts on SEO and content, organic
Well, it's
content?
interesting because we were on HubSpot. We use HubSpot as our CRM.
Hmm.
And then recently there were all these articles that came out that like the HubSpot CEO has tanked. Now, I don't know whether that impacts the companies whose blogs were hosted on HubSpot. I assume so.
Mm.
Um, Actually, interestingly, the other day, a journalist sent me, he was on Perplexity, and he had Googled, one of our clients was Live Golf, and he
Hmm.
had Googled, like, what has Live Golf done for marketing? And in Perplexity, they had mentioned our work with Live Golf. So I was
Wow.
like, oh, this is really interesting. It's like SEO, but like plus, 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 but I don't even know where they're getting the information from.
Mm.
So I think, in answer to your question, I'm not sure we're doing a great job of it, but I think we need to put out way more content, but you don't know where it's going to land or how it's going to be used anymore with AI. But it has to be out there.
Yeah. Obviously, attribution is getting more complicated, definitely. But AI is so helpful in creating content, and today you can create like AI avatar yourself, and even all these text to video platforms, which are performing very, very well even today, and they're only just starting. So it's really exciting.
Which one's your favorite?
I think in video today is probably, I think, the best. Kling AI also, but these are more like film style,
Right.
cinematic, right? And you also have influencer platforms like influence AI, like I don't know how to call them really, virtual AI
Yeah.
influencers. You can just upload a product picture, right? And they can showcase and explain and talk about the product. And these are virtual avatars. And it's really exciting what's happening. We are just monitoring this industry because it's part of the services that we provide. We have like a huge table of new tools that are coming up, like, and it's by the minute. Like every minute there is a new tool
Mm.
doing something new in video AI, and it's really fascinating, exciting. Because what's working today is obviously consistency, authenticity, and
Yeah.
just no one cares too much in short form about the production value and the b-rolls, and these are just, for some people, it's just they don't like it too much. So yeah, I mean, authenticity and consistency is the name of the game, and it's creating this type of content is obviously very, very powerful. Ishvin, any final tips or thoughts that you can share with some of the other industry professionals out there, trying to scale with e-commerce and growing their business?
Yeah, I think the main thing I would say is just why we still love athletes at our base is just that kind of like ripple effect of the feel good factor. Sponsorship was never like produced to do one thing. It wasn't just like there's cheaper ways to get brand awareness, there's cheaper ways to buy loyalty, there's cheaper ways to do things. But it's like it permeates across the board. And I would say like I think athletes do the same thing where any brand, when they say like, oh, I work with an athlete, like it's a really good feel good factor for your customers as well as you. And that, if you're more charitable, then that might be like a Paralympian. If you're cooler, it might be an NFL or a Premier League player. But I would say that I think in this world, like you're saying, where attribution is hard, and I think we became very performance marketing oriented. Like if I spend $1, I want $1.15 back. I think you do need to invest in brand, and I feel like athlete influence marketing, sports sponsorship are a great way to like invest in brand, but not wasted. Like it still can drive performance, but there's also like you're actually investing in your storytelling as well.
100%, totally agree. Ishvin, if people or companies want to approach you or in the company, where they can find you?
Yeah, absolutely. Would love to hear from anyone. Opensponsorship.com. You can find me on LinkedIn or Ishveen at opensponsorship.com.
Amazing. Anything else you want to add?
no, come and have a chat with us for sure. We often we have a great social listening tool, so we're able to see if any athletes have talked about like your company, your keywords, topics that are trending for you. And I think that's really interesting because people often get surprised. They're like, oh, athletes are talking about XYZ term that they care about.
Great, Ishwin. Thank you so much. It was really a pleasure for us to have you here, and really super interesting. I wish you all the best and amazing year.
Yeah, you too. Thanks so much.
Bye-bye. Thank you for listening to the end of this episode. If you found this episode valuable, please subscribe so you won't miss any of our future content. Explore Vimy, the video commerce platform that includes live shopping, shoppable video, and social commerce capabilities. Visit Vimy at www.vimy.net. We appreciate your support and look forward for bringing you more valuable insights in our next episode.